Welcome everyone to the second ever episode of Rival and Rants. This is the kind of emergency ignition broadcast that we have here. I'm Vodible, your host, alongside RD IRL on the other side of things. But we have two amazing people from the Marvel Rivals team, Adalynx and Valentina. Why don't you all introduce yourself for those who might not be as familiar with you and what you've done in the scene, starting with Ada.
I am a T1 coach. I coached NTMR before in the MRI and MRC to pretty solid placements. I've been a pretty consistent top 500, high top 500 player since beta. And I love the game. I love the scene. I love competition and bringing the best that I possibly can to the
Heck
scene.
yeah. And Valentina, what about yourself?
Hi everyone. I'm Valentina. I'm also known as Valentina Eve. I am a tier 1 player from Marvel Rivals. I peaked in rank 1 and I had rank 1 and 2 simultaneously on the leaderboard at the same time.
Wow.
I was also a player for Soloris in the MRC and we finished top 12, I think.
Heck yeah. Well, it's awesome. And Artie, I mean, introduce yourself as well for those who might not be as familiar, but you just did something really cool, not in Marvel Rivals. I think that's kind of cool to shout out.
Yeah, what's up, everyone? My name is Artie. I'm a caster for Marvel Rivals. Still haven't done MRC yet, but once they invite me, I know that they'll love me. But I did Twitch Rivals, been doing a lot of the stuff in Tier 2 and some collegiate stuff as well. And recently, I just casted the first ever Fragpunk Grand Finals for LAN. I got to cast with tens, which was kind of insane. And then next month I'll be going to China for that. And I'll be going to Hangzhou, where hopefully I'll be able to meet some of the Marvel Rivals staff and put somebody into a like a dark corner of a room and like press them for information, because that's what we're lacking right now is information. And
Exactly.
hopefully we're gonna get a little bit more soon. But yeah, I am also right now trying out for several different coaching positions. I'm actually fighting Ada for them, but we're I'm trying out for some
1v1.
coaching positions. Got some stuff going on. Been consulting after Marvel Rivals Ignite got announced. I had 3 different tier 1 orgs in NA, 2 different orgs in EMEA, and 4 orgs in Pacific reach out to me and say, how do we sign a Marvel Rivals team? Who do we look for? So over the last like week and a half, 2 weeks, I have just been connecting teams and orgs and realizing that, man, I should have drafted a contract to get paid for it. But all in the love of the game, baby.
That's how it goes. You know, people always ask for an arm and take like the entire body or torso afterwards. But again, we are here to talk about Marvel Rivals Ignite. It's not Ignition. It's not anything Valorant related, but it's kind of similar, and we'll talk about those similarities as we get into the action for that. But there was a video that was posted earlier on today on the Marvel Rivals Twitter. This is it. We're not going to be playing the audio because we basically have all the audio that you'll really need from ourselves. So it has all the details. 2025 Marvel Rivals Ignite. It's not just a May competition. It's spanning the entire year here for this as well. So Marvel Rivals Ignite. This video, I think, already is like not an hour. I think this video is only like 30 or like 5 minutes or something. Oh, you mean the podcast? Okay.
I mean,
This
the
podcast is going to be short. Artie, I think we're trying to keep it at like 30 minutes maximum, something of that
Perfect.
sort. So it's not going to go anything super long. So don't worry. Anyone else watching this, don't worry either. This is going to be kind of short and sweet, talking about everything that's going on as well. So most competitive tournament yet for Marvel Rivals. This is tier 1 for Marvel Rivals esports, for Marvel Rivals Ignite. You can see there are 4 different stages. Well, stage 1, mid-season finals, stage 2, and the finals. These are the slots that they have available for that. We'll go over the graphic. Our cameras are kind of covering it a little bit there. 8 slots available. Thank you. Jesse, you're amazing. 8 slots for open qualifiers, 4 for MRI and 4 for MRC based on what region you're coming from. Split 1 is May 15th to 25th. Split 2, May 26th to June 1st, which is kind of insane. You have the group stage where everyone is played into, and then 50% of them kind of go out of the competition there. So then you have the mid-season finals, which they talked about. $500,000 will be for that. Ignite stage 2 in August to October, and then the actual finals for it will be in November. So they have multiple qualifiers, they have multiple stages, and a grand finals where they said it's going to be $1 million grand finals, which is just kind of insane. Group stage to playoffs to grand finals. It's nice that it's not just a single tournament and then like one cool grand final. You actually have an entire season of tournaments, 500,000 for mid-season finals, 100 or $1 million for the grand finals. That's basically all the info we have there. Artie, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on this?
It is insane that we have this level of competition already because it came out of absolutely nowhere. And
Yeah.
I think that the most shocking thing isn't the amount of money. It isn't the amount of teams or like slots that are already granted. It's the fact that it starts next week and all of these orgs didn't even hear about it until like 10 days ago. So roster locks are on the 15th and it is nuts. Everybody is trying to get a team signed. All the unsigned teams are trying to get into an org now. And I am a little bit torn on the fact that we have the midseason finals and then stage 2 just feeds directly into champs. I feel like we could have done finals for both stages, but I don't know. I kind of vibe with the condensed format because it means more esports.
Yeah, it's basically, I would say, kind of like a major in my opinion, right? If it's just a single match, though, that's a bit of a letdown compared to other majors you see in other esports titles. Maybe they're just kind of testing the waters with that, with having like a cool matchup to see like who gets some extra money, and then based on qualifications and stuff, you make it into another later stage. They haven't said all the details about that yet, but from those people that are actually deep and embedded in the scene itself, Ada, what are your initial thoughts on Marvel Rivals Ignite?
I mean, this is absolutely the biggest thing to come to Marvel Rivals yet. I can tell you very confidently the T1 scene is scrambling. From the day that was announced, my DMs exploded. And then I exploded everybody else's DMs with.
I even hit your DMs up because there's an org that messaged me. I'm like, ah.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely in a bit of a rush as soon as this came out. I was like, oh my god, I gotta lock my roster now. I gotta lock my players. I gotta find them a home, find them some support. Get us into this. Get us as far as we can go. Which I believe with my roster that I'm very confident in is going to go far.
Oh yeah, it's going to be so exciting to see the competition, see how far you and your team goes as well. And speaking of that team, Valentina also working with Ada, coming up with a new roster and everything of that sort. You don't have to tell details about that, but just talk about how crazy the process for you has been, because I've seen you kind of like go from roster to roster to different teams, and now you're here with Ada on a new team that's coming up that will eventually be announced once the actual competition starts. It's got to be nerve-wracking to be a top player at this level of the game when something like this drops.
I definitely was like very like ecstatic when I first saw the announcement because it was something that was just so big, not only for like me, but also for just everyone else in the community. And when the Ignite got announced, I'm pretty sure I got like 9 offers in total from like 9 different teams.
That's insane.
And
That's
it was
insane.
like an insane, it was so overwhelming for me, but I was so glad. It's my whole reason as to why I really wanted to be here is because I wanted to be representation for people like me. So like when I do compete in Ignite and eventually when I win, I want to be able to put more people like me up there. I want to have representation for all of us.
Heck yeah. That's what we love to hear. And I know, Artie, you probably have some like thoughts about that as well. When you were talking about the different organizations that have just been like hitting your DMs up and trying to like see if there's other rosters that are looking for people out there. This is just a whirlwind of greatness, but also stress for a lot of people out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's orgs that have been talking to me about like, hey, what are the offers that are out there? What are the prices? What's the average price for players? And so, being able to talk to a lot of different orgs, managers, and be like, hey, what's the what is this? And I'm able to get all those numbers. I'm in a lucky position for that. But at the same time, a lot of these orgs are like, they're not expecting $10,000 a month, like as like out of nowhere, right? And so they want to do it. They want, because the prize is amazing and the ability to get noticed on this level immediately from picking up a cracked roster. It is amazing. But you've got like 2 different types of orgs out there. The most common type of org is like, hey, who is this team? Like, can we pick them up really easily? And then the other one is like, hey, who is the best team that's out there? We have infinite money. I won't say exactly.
I mean, we
which,
can all
which
kind of
org is
think
the
of what
second
those
one.
organizations would be, right?
Yeah.
We've known that
Um,
org or those couple of orgs that are in other scenes, Apex, but even then, you know, there's a lot of different rosters out there. I mean, I'm from the Rocket League scene personally. I've just got done adminning RLCS while this information dropped, and like, man, so many different orgs in that don't even have a presence in Marvel Rivals, and potential for a lot of new organizations or really well-known orgs to pick up teams out there. But before we get into any more of the org talk, let's go directly through the post that's on marvelrivals.com/match, and then there's a bunch of numbers, so sorry. But this is the Ignite 2025 Stage 1 Open Qualifiers, a season full of opportunities. And that's what this whole tournament's about, different opportunities that are available for these teams. So again, saying it's launching an exciting tournament this May, but let's talk about these Open Qualifiers, MRC and MRI. We'll talk specifically about who we think or kind of know is already qualified, but 8 qualifier slots here. We were talking about this before we actually went live. Ada, seems like a lot for this kind of a competition.
Yeah. I mean, we were expecting from info that's just been floating around the scene for a bit, you know, things travel through the grapevine. Top players love to gossip, whether that's in ranked or DMs. It happens. We thought there was going to be four slots out of the top 4. So it was going to be 4 for MRI, 4 for MRC, and then 4 for open quals. And already we were like, that is nothing. If the teams that we thought got into the invited stage did get into the invited stage, we were like, that is, I mean, if you don't get in.
A lot of chances.
Yeah. And then it came out to 8, and we're like, okay, so we're in. So, and then there's also going to be some teams that I don't believe will. Lambs to the slaughter, we'll call them.
Yeah, there's gonna be like those random like lucky teams that just have like one series win because a map goes their way, because I'm assuming they're still gonna do randomized maps for whatever reason for this level of competition. Please stop doing that in modes. So we'll see if they do anything of that sort. But yeah, there's so much potential for teams to qualify. 8 spots is a lot, especially for almost every region. I know for China, Asia, and OCE, it says 6, and then Americas and EMEA, it says 8. So it is a little different for those other regions, but as you can see, Americas and EMEA probably the most competitive in terms of competition there. For MRI slots, it looks like for China, Asia, and OCE, there's only 2 slots for those. They also had a smaller MRI, which makes sense why there would be less teams from that. And then 4 slots for everyone from MRC, which I think is a solid way to do things. We'll talk more about specifics on the teams, but I do want to drop this here now that people don't know. This was confirmed by a source of mine. I'm not saying names, but essentially they went based on this graphic for 4 teams from MRC, then 4 teams from MRI. If it was the other way around, we would have had completely different teams qualified for this competition, because, you know, a lot of those teams who did well in MRI pretty much did good in MRC, but there's also some teams who didn't play in MRC, Envy, that played in MRI and did pretty decently themselves. So it's like interesting way that they came up with this, Artie. I mean, what are your thoughts on the order of operations they chose for qualification there? This is all alleged, but this is what we've been told.
Yeah, right. Like and that's kind of the question I asked you this morning, was before we knew any of it, was, hey, which is like seated higher prio, right? And I don't know. I feel like it, in some senses, it's just very arbitrary, right? It's a lot of it should be based off of merit of the teams, and that's why they want to be like, you know, the teams that have already done so much, they should be rewarded for that. That's fantastic. But you start to look at some other regions, you start to look at like the smaller regions and like teams that are areas that don't have as much representation, but there's a lot of weirdness that goes on. I'm not gonna like say names or like call people out or call teams out, but there are teams, for example, that competed in both Oceania MRC and Asia MRC under different accounts and different names, because you just need to sign up with your Marvel Rivals account into the thing and nobody checks. And there's a lot of stuff that like some teams got qualled and then they are potentially, allegedly, possibly competing with completely different rosters of people that didn't actually reach those levels of competition. And this is not NA. Like that didn't happen in NA, that didn't happen in EMEA, but you know, China, Asia, Oceania, those are all still valid regions as well. And I am worried about the competitive integrity of people that are competing on that side of things. I think that there's a lot of like, opaque glass between it, and especially behind the scenes, there's a lot of like, hey, people don't really know about it, so it's fine. But I'm just so curious as to how they came up with this like kind of arbitrary set of like, this is how everyone is in.
Yeah, it is very interesting to think about that too. Also, we'll go through the graphics here in just a second. It's a little confusing on how like the splits specifically work and how that's going to be split up as well. So thankfully they do explain it a decent amount, but I feel like this is just me venting for a second. This is what the rant part of Rivals and Rants is. Marvel Rivals, you do some weird things with your organization for esports tournaments that make it a lot more complicated than it needs to be. If you explain things in like actual like videos on like, this is how exactly the qualification works for these teams, it's going to be like 4 out of 6 players on the main roster that hold the slots, things of that sort. But we got to give them a little bit of grace because it is the first ever season of this. So I'm sure they're kind of like working on things as they go along. They don't want to do things exactly like other scenes do, try their own style of competition that way as well. So we'll see how that goes on that side of things. But going to the registration start and end time. So we already talked about how the splits are going to be at different times. The second split, I believe it was going to be in the fall. The first split going to be starting in May, specifically here. The registration and open qualifiers for those are both in May. Am I correct on that, Artie?
So open qualifiers for stage 1 is the May 21st until May 25th, looking just at the calendar. Yeah. And then open qualifiers for split 2 is the week after.
Yeah.
And
why, if split 2 is happening in August, is the qualifier in May? Like, that's my question here.
I think it's because of the timing with MRC for season 2. I feel like that has to be it.
Okay.
Because we know that they're still going to have the same qualifying slots, but who knows? Like, 'cause there's also 8 slots are from stage 1, people that didn't win. So I don't know. It's
confusing.
They kind of explained a lot, but it made more questions than answers.
Exactly. Here's a question I have for you, Valentina. So in terms of priority, there's going to be people playing in Ignite that these qualifiers are in May, and then immediately after there's MRC, and supposedly maybe we'll see for split 2 qualifications, people can get in from MRC season 2. We don't know that yet. But at least in terms of levels of interest from orgs and teams, I feel like some people might not even play in MRC. Do you think there might be a vibe of that sort where people just solely focus on Ignite and then just train for the next split of competition afterwards?
I definitely think a lot of teams are going to be focusing on Ignite just because Ignite's going to have probably the most viewership, and it also obviously has a bigger prize pool. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of teams went out of their way and just completely disregarded MRC and just purely focused on the MRI. But
Yeah.
I don't know. I think like it could go either way. I honestly wouldn't be able to tell.
I think any competition is good competition, and it's basically like there's 2 different tiers, but they're still trying to figure out the like exact scheduling that they're looking for that. And speaking of that scheduling, I mean, Ada, this has got to be a nightmare for you as like a team head trying to like corral your team together, be like, okay, we got to register for this event by this date, this event by this date, make sure that we have time for different scrims and tournaments. I mean, talk to me about that just crazy process that's going on right now.
I mean, it was a lot worse before we locked our roster in. I mean, going between trials and trying to figure out like, okay, I need to make a decision by this deadline. The org wants this deadline. Contracts by this point, agreements here, there, scrims, and then there was another thing that went on with us in particular that was a little bit of a nightmare. But I think I'm through the worst of it, and then we're gonna get to the next level of hell, you know?
Yeah.
and get into MRC and MRI scheduling, which is gonna be a ton of fun, I'm sure. But you know, when your players are being paid, you can tell people to be there at a certain time, and they will have to be there, which is beautiful.
Yep.
Exactly.
Beautiful that I can just give people a time and say, you're being paid, you have to be
See,
there.
it's not like Rocket League sometimes where people sleep in and miss qualification matches for professional players
Well,
out there. I
okay,
mean, there's
well.
probably still people that do that in Marvel Rivals, but I'm just calling out people I know of.
I know of a couple events personally.
Yeah, I've never had any scrims go over because people slept in for 15 minutes. No. it never
Meanwhile,
happened.
sleeping in, it's already past like noon in their time zone, and they're just like asleep because they scrimmed until like 3 a.m. or something like that. Sometimes 5 a.m. because they're just gamer hours, you know.
Or stream.
Or that too, yeah.
Stream until 12 a.m.
Yeah, yeah, that's not good.
Absolutely.
I see Gen.G tagging someone. I wonder if they are also guilty for that. But anyway,
Come on, who are they tagging?
They're
Who's
tagging only
who's
Dinks
scatter
here.
tagging?
We're
Yeah,
calling
of
out. We're
course.
calling out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we have the open qualifiers. It's interesting how in this post they don't have the actual dates again for both splits. So let me go back to the video real quick to see the exact dates for that on that, which is just kind of weird that they don't have the split dates. I know they have like the registration, they have the open qualifiers, but they're missing like the exact date for when the splits are. Like what?
That whole last conversation, I was scouring and like control Fing and all the pages, could not find anything.
Okay, so May to July is Ignite Stage 1, and then August to October. Thank you, Jesse, for going back to the video for this, so I didn't have to go and scramble and find it.
Yeah,
it's in the video, but it's not in the post. Like,
but no
what are you
dates
doing here?
And then again, like going back to the other like calendar, it's before June. Right, so
yes, that's the open
May
qualifiers.
Yeah, so open qualifiers for Split 2 is May 28th until June 1st. But then there's like nothing happening in June. Like we just have like a month off.
Well, wait,
which,
so
again,
go
it's
back
for
to where it says
MRC.
phase 1. When is phase 1 supposed to be?
Phase 1 is, it says May to June, but May to July.
Yeah.
Right, so what's
June to July is MRC every weekend.
Yeah.
When is Ignite supposed to be?
Well, hey, as Ada said, they're getting paid, so it can be whenever.
True. I wonder if it's like during weekdays or something like that. But it's like, why do they not have this locked in when qualifiers are literally starting on the 21st and registration starts next Thursday? Right.
Well,
this is information.
Orgs have been just rushing.
I have a question for Valentina on this. Valentina, as a player, what does the scheduling do to like your mental health, to your physical health? Like how this scheduling, I mean, you are like, you know, like straight up gamer hours, DGen hours, getting 2 accounts to level 1. So I feel like you might be the worst player to ask this for, but what does the scheduling do?
No, I am probably the worst person to ask. I mean, like, I don't really mind. I'm just a really like passionate and like committed player, right? So like anytime where I do have free time, I'm always trying to get better. I'm always trying to just be at the top of the level. So I don't really mind the schedule. I mean, there was a day where I quad blocked. So like I can play for as long as I need to.
Nice.
That's valid. That's very
valid.
Oh man, but I'm trying to load up the game real quick. It's probably going to take forever to compile shaders as always to see if there's any more specifics on exact dates. So ignore my camera as it just lags like crazy. But even then, so we have Ignite potentially during the weeks, potentially just like offsetted with the times because the qualifiers are only in May, but it'll probably start in June then if July is when we're having like the mid-season actual finale. They said it was the executive producer or like the producer of Marvel Rivals on Twitter when Ignite initially announced said that there would be a hybrid format. I'm assuming that the midseason and the grand finals is going to be in some sort of like show match LAN. I wish that they had confirmation if there was a playoff portion on LAN because that would be amazing to have like either studio or like a live audience be able to watch these matches and have the international competition be there as well. I mean,
I do believe I can offer a little bit of insight into that. It is the belief of everybody in the scene that there will be a LAN grand finals and playoffs.
Okay, playoffs. That's the one thing I wanted to make sure because it's
some
like,
kind of thing
there needs
like that.
to be playoff at least where all of the different international squads that made it to those playoffs can compete against each other and face off against
I don't know about competing against each other.
Okay, so it
I
might
do
just only
believe
be like
it's just
so region specific.
it's region locked.
Gotcha. Okay.
I believe, yeah.
You know, that is a lot cheaper to do, I will say, for a first season for Marvel Rivals. Again, hopefully next year they do an actual like major event for every international team playing against each other. I know I keep going back to Rocket League because that's what I'm familiar with, and I'm an admin for the RLCS over there. The way that they're doing like their 1v1 tournament is they essentially have like 4 different regions face off against their own regions, and then at the major they have like a show match for the top like 1v1 player from EU and the top 1v1 player from South America, something of that sort. I'm assuming it's just going to be a show match, like not a show match. It's an actual competition for 500,000. I mean, my goodness, that's not a show match at all.
Yeah.
But it just kind of sucks that we're only getting that, Artie.
I mean, the thing is we're at least we're getting something, right? One of the things that has been, I feel like it's kind of a double-edged sword, and I think Ada could probably back me up on this. Is like the fact that Marvel Rivals as an esport has been fully remote. We haven't had any teams that have needed to come in for a LAN. We haven't had any teams that have actually formed a team house yet, allegedly. But like it's one thing that where like a lot of the orgs have been like using that as like a good thing because hey, if I'm gonna pay $10,000 for a roster every month, then at the very least we don't have to like pay for them to, you know, be together. But on the other end of things, I feel like the way that Marvel Rivals esports has like formed from the ground up feels almost backwards in a sense.
It does. It definitely does. I mean, I feel like they're very hesitant to fully invest in like the ecosystem that really makes esports so unique with those LAN events. And I know it's such a huge undertaking. You need so many funds and a lot of staff for it too. So they're probably trying to just get themselves prepared for it as they find the right contractors and things to do that sort of deal. But it's NetEase. They have like access to whoever they want to do stuff for them, right? So you would think that they would have people on speed dial that they'd be like, hey, Blast or ESL or whoever else, let's do some sort of partnership and run it this way. My guess is they're trying to do stuff a little bit more internally on their end and then have it be self-sustainable that way, similar to like how Riot does it. And I kind of respect them for that, though, wanting to make sure that they have their full control on it first before maybe partnering or handing it off to a specific TO that's out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is, like, Valorant did it opposite, right? Where Valorant just had TOs running like different events where we had open qualifiers. And I think back to the Nerd Street days. Actually, it was called VCT Ignition or Valorant Ignition before VCT.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah. And so it's like funny where it is exactly the opposite. But yeah, I mean, they're putting money into it first, which is good. But it's like, I don't know, we're in such a weird spot where it's like only the orgs that already have money have a chance at starting. Where it feels like because the format of MRC being so open, they wanted it to not be that way. But now they're supporting it. I don't know.
Who knows? I tried going in tournament to see if there was actual specifics on the sign up and everything yet. It's not in game yet, at least for when I was looking at it. I know they're going to add it to the tournament page. So once we get that, we'll update that on a future episode. But sorry to interrupt if you want to continue with what you're saying.
No, there's one issue that I think is a big one within the scene right now, and that's the tremendous skill gap between T2 and T1 right now.
That's true. Yeah.
Absolutely tremendous. Like, orgs are gonna want to get in and they're gonna want to like look to bring and compete to the top, but there is a enormous skill gap to cross before you are in T1 and before you're actually playing at the level that these players play, because we're double blocking, sometimes triple blocking, and playing against only the other best teams. And at some point, you scrim a lesser team, and you're like, this isn't even
worth it. Time.
It's not even worth. It's not even worth it.
It's a rough spot.
And then how do they get in? And as a coach, it's on me to blacklist these teams when they come in, and they're not a challenge, and we're just kind of running people over for 2 hours. But I mean, it feels bad because do these players want to get better? Absolutely, they do. And that's commendable. But I can't sacrifice my team's time that they could be spending and keeping up with the competition.
Yeah, it's a catch-22.
I can't logically do that. So how does a T2 team improve to the level that they need to improve
MRC.
to start to face it. Well, I mean, what, you get 3 games?
Yeah.
And then you go,
I know.
wow, I'm like super
I know.
behind.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
they left me in the dust
bouncing
2-3 weeks ago.
Bouncing off of that, like what you were saying, because I had this conversation with one of the orgs that was talking to me about signing a team. They're like, how big is that gap? What's happening right now? And I told them it's kind of a byproduct of what some of these teams are kind of going through right now, where you've got teams that are unsigned, but they have a full roster of staff on the back end. Teams will come with a head coach and come with an assistant coach and a manager and all the stuff tied into them. And on one hand, some teams that are at that level, it makes it harder for them to get signed because an org doesn't want to have all of that extra stuff. They just want the players, and then they'll have their own coach. They'll have their own manager that they want to put in. But then you also get the teams that don't have that are trying to then find scrim blocks like Ada was talking about. But without a coach, you can only get so good, right? As a player, you're in the driver's seat so long, and if you don't know what mechanics you're not focusing on, or if you don't know what strategies you're missing out on, it can be so hard to go through it. Because if you're a player, you want to grind all day, which means no time for VOD reviews, but you have to VOD review. But also, VOD reviews are sometimes useless if you're going to be VOD reviewing something that will not give you any bit of information on what you're doing as a team because you just got rolled over for 2 hours, right? And there's all the stuff where the teams that are at the top, they are going to stay at that level. Ada is 100% right. And it's such a weird spot to be in right now.
I want to ask Valentina a question about this specifically. So, Jesse, if you can bring back up the document for a second, scroll down to the sign up section. The minimum rank is Grandmaster 3 for this, for 512 different factions that can sign up. Valentina, this should be higher, shouldn't it?
Yes, I agree. Especially after the rank reset, even before the rank reset, even in season 0 and season 1, I just don't think GM3 is I don't even think that's tier 2. I think that's on
even
much
before
lower level.
Even before Celestial was a thing.
Yeah. It's just I think what I consider high elo, even in this season, I think it's anywhere from not even top 500. I think anyone above maybe 300, maybe even 200. I think there's just such a big skill gap between all of the ranks.
I think that there's a world where Eternity players are T2, just depending on how much you're scrimming and how much you're not actively grinding. Kind of like Valorant, where it's you have a lot of pros that are bottom of Immortal just because they're not grinding ranked. And for Valorant, you have to be. For this game, kind of the same way. Everyone's always grinding. But yeah, I think GM3 is nowhere near. I don't even think it's tier 3. I don't think I know that because I hit GM and I don't play. I'm a career coach and caster. I don't play the game. How come I can hit that, right?
Yeah, it was one of the most inflated ranks that they showed, specifically at the end of season 1. I think it was so many people more than there was in Plat were GM, which is just not how things should work. Even with the rank reset, there's still been inflation and things of that sort. But what I want to talk about now for our last 10 minutes or so is the teams that are pseudo confirmed based on what we were talking about before. So again, as a reminder for those who might just be tuning in, it's MRC first, then MRI for qualifications into at least stage 1, not for stage 2 specifically. So this is just stage 1 qualifiers for Ignite. Split 2, I don't know if that's included in stage 1. It sounds like it is. We'll see on specifically on that. But this is kind of what we know so far. Potential that either an org from MRI has a team slot, or the faction from MRC has a team slot. So if you had teams get mixed up in the fray there, they might not have a spot. I was thinking Brim Brim Patapim, who had members from OG and Beamers and all that kind of stuff, did have a spot. I did get confirmation that they aren't qualified for it. And there's other teams that have sort of similar situations that aren't in Marvel Rivals Ignite that you would kind of expect to be there. So we're going to go through, shout out to Liquipedia, the Marvel Rivals Liquipedia for each region, and kind of talk about, okay, going through MRC first, then MRI to see the kind of 4 to 6, maybe 7 or 8-ish teams that we can pseudo confirm in some way are going to either be invited or be in that already qualified pool for Marvel Rivals Ignite. And if you're still with me, I'm also confused. Don't worry. So if you could bring that up, Jesse, so we can kind of go through it. together and see, okay, here's some of the teams that are out there. So here's some of the different like org logos and rosters. We'll go through those in a bit. But if you want to scroll down to the bracket specifically, so you can see the exact team. So this is for MRC Season 1. As you can see, of course, Sentinels guaranteed invited. No doubts there. 100 Thieves as well. Shroud X2 and Magnets. We talked to Cyber. He said, hey, we might have an org that's coming at some point. Can't say more in the first episode of MRC. So they made it in just based on upsetting FlyQuest twice, because they did it once in the original qualification and then here as well to make it into that top 4. I mean, from someone who played in MRC, Valentina, this, I feel like there would have been more stakes for a lot of teams if they knew these qualifications mattered that much.
Definitely. Going into the MRC, when I was on Solaris, we didn't have that much scrim time to begin with, so we were still really happy with our placement. But I think like if we knew about this beforehand,
Exactly.
we would have definitely put in a lot more scrims and a lot more effort.
It's a rough spot to be in for that as well. And if you go to MRI now, Jesse, sorry to direct you to different pages and everything too for North America. Yeah, this is the second one. It's not the first one that people are qualifying from. So we already have 100 Thieves. So you can knock them off the list. FlyQuest, because they got top 6 in MRC, but they got second in MRI, they're guaranteed, quote unquote guaranteed, allegedly, into the competition here. Envy, as I alluded to before, they did not play in MRC, but because they got top 4, they do get a spot here. Now, this is the interesting part, Artie, if you want to say this as well, which we're basically confirming kind of pseudo on this podcast as well, on the 2 other teams that, based on this list from MRI being the second qualification spot, are confirmed, at least in some form or fashion, to be in the first stage of Ignite.
Yep. Because of 100 Thieves performing through MRC, means that their MRI qual doesn't matter, which means we got extra slots, which means that Envy is in, which means that also, because everything else, we got Nightmare, potentially. We have Nightmare coming in through MRI, which is wild. And also, allegedly, Shikigami, allegedly.
There's it's weird. It's weird. There's a lot of things going around, and there's the potentiality of another slot floating.
That's
right
kind of
now
crazy too.
that we don't know.
So like, I'm like, okay, does that go to Rad Esports then, or does it go to an MRC team in that fashion?
Well, I mean, there's some teams in the scene that just don't have anybody right now.
And that's the crazy part too.
And
who owns those slots? I looked through the rules. I scoured them, Control F as well, just to try and see if we could find specific instances of stating exactly how the qualification works for MRC and MRI. They do not have that there. Of course, they probably want it to leave it to their discretion, but I think that's something you kind of need to spell out so teams aren't just left waiting on, like, do we have a spot or not?
I'm just so upset that they announced this on Friday, because my original source said that this announcement was going to go out on Wednesday. And so I was like so excited for Wednesday.
They usually do.
But yeah, right. And so, but then it got delayed because the video, it was the voiceover was the reason it got delayed. And so
Shout out voiceovers.
Shout out voiceover. So now it came out on Friday. And it's already the weekend in China, so I can't hit up any of my NetEase contacts to like actually get information because it is the weekend in China. And so I will have to wait until Sunday in order to actually follow up with any of this. And it's so unfortunate.
It's kind of a rough spot to be in. So we'll quickly go through the other ones and we'll kind of talk about exactly what there is, because we only have so much time left for this. There's other tournaments, other things going on in the background while all this is going on. So if we want to go back to MRC, Jesse, and go to EMEA, that way we can kind of go through those teams right there. And then we'll go back to MRI, EMEA, and kind of go back and forth that way. So looking at things here specifically. So, whoa, no doubt. Virtus Pro made it. That's insane. Luminosity EU, don't know exactly what's going on with that roster, but supposedly they have a spot. I don't know if it's like Luminosity has a spot or if it's Luminosity EU, the faction. Because I do know some of the players and the coaching staff over there, they did get dropped, but their NA team they kept for whatever reason. All Business, they're supposedly still looking for an org. They placed top 3. They made it in as well. And OG in some form, not Brim Brim Patapim though, maybe OG the org has a spot, apparently, allegedly. This is
Which
just
would mean
way too confusing.
Yeah, which would mean that Pim actually is in because they're OG now,
Well,
and then
but they said they're not in
They
because of
don't.
it. Yeah, like supposedly they're not in. Like they have not been told that they're in, as far as I am aware.
this is the
weird.
same issue that happens in so many esports that have these like I like to call them just like main menu qualifiers, right? Where you qualify through the main menu, but it's like the games want orgs, right? But it's not orgs that are signing up and playing through the main menu. And so how do you find that middle ground and like, you know, all this like contract stuff? And at least Valorant, they have it like written out where for premier teams, if they get picked up after they win and they're in the VCL qualifiers, they, as long as the roster is 4 out of 5 players, then it's fine. And I think that's really good. I think it's a good way to do it. But there's nothing that says that an Oregon Marvel Rivals can just, if they qualify, kick everybody off of the MRC,
Exactly,
the Marvel
which
Rivals
is
team,
insane.
bring a whole new set of people on.
Let's get all
crazy.
the Overwatch pros back in here.
Let alone the fact that there's.
Look, I can
Sorry, go ahead.
I could definitely say that there's been some musical chairs
I'm
happening
sure.
Yeah.
with with teams in the scene right now.
I know y'all can't like officially confirm anything, and don't worry about doing anything of that sort. We'll eventually get like news on exactly how things are going down in the background once everything's locked in. I feel like that's usually the safest part to get confirmation on that stuff. But yeah, a lot of this is still speculation. But as far as we know, the former OG roster, who does not have 2 of their players from the OG roster, has people from Royal Beamers, is not qualified. We can confirm that. But will they be qualified later on due to whatever rules that they come up with for like a reason? That'd be cool. I mean, they deserve a spot in my opinion. So looking at MRI now, Jesse, to see, okay, these other teams that have those quote unquote slots that are available. You have, so Verse Pro already went in, OG already in, Fnatic. Does the org Fnatic just have a spot now? Like what's going on here? Because
No
that team
idea.
also doesn't exist anymore. Line Pro's on a different squad now.
Yeah, there's so. I mean, also, I think Asia is probably one of the best places to talk about this as well, because you look at MRC, right, and Gen.G Academy is like up the top, but then Gen.G has signed a roster that is not Gen.G Academy, because as someone that worked there, they're 2 different like entities entirely, but they're the same organization, and so they're so disjointed. But then now, are they going to have 2 rosters in? But no, there's no way, right? There's not going to be Gen.G versus Gen.G Academy grand finals. But
Exactly.
like, I don't know what's happening. Nobody knows what's happening. It's fantastic.
So let's quickly speed through this as
Gotta
well. Sorry, because Artie's got to go in a couple minutes too. So Team Peps and Ecstatic very likely to have some sort of formation of that has qualification spots now, because Virtus Pro and OG and Luminosity also made it in. Don't know what that last team is going to be. Will it be Twisted Minds? I don't even know if that roster exists anymore. It's kind of crazy to think about that, but Jesse, while we're talking, if you want to just kind of like go through both China and Asia, and I think OCE, just so we can kind of like show the teams that are out there. Yeah, so China, or for MRC specifically, sorry, because we got to keep going back and forth because of this crazy qualification thing. So there's Taeyun Gaming, OUG, Nova Esports, and Uwu FPS. Shout out that makes it in. To that as well. Going to MRI for them too. For I think this is China, if I'm not mistaken. For them too, yeah. They had their own qualification that you could not watch in the actual game itself. OUG's already in, eHome, Uwu's already in, Nova's already in, so that Taeyun's already in, I believe. So that'd be SLZZ and one of the other teams out there. Maybe LGD Gaming, maybe FL Esports. Maybe they'll play some sort of qualifying match for an invite spot. Who knows? But we can talk about the rest of them as you're going through it. Just back to MRC, then to MRI. Was it Ada or Valentina who had something that you were trying to bring up? Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, my goat Zune GT3 XCI. Oh, they clear Asia.
There we go.
Clear Asia. My goats.
Gotta love it. Looking at, so it's not Gen.G Academy. That's just the team name that they went by, apparently, and their faction name. They also changed their name later on of their faction. I forget what the exact name is, but they're in for Asia. Uprise, XOXO01, and Legit L. And then on the other side of things for Asia, there's a couple other ones from MRI too. I believe it's only 2 for Asia for MRI for that, because they only had like a couple of teams Yeah, they only had that many teams, so it would be maybe NLE, but NLE doesn't exist anymore. They had different rosters that were on the other. It's way too confusing, Artie.
I wouldn't have had it any other way for Marvel Rivals Esports. I mean, the best part about it, let's all be honest, it is one of the most easy, fun to watch esports. Like, it is so easy to just get into it and understand what's going on. Bronze players can watch and be like, hey, I get what this team is doing, and that is fantastic. The moment that you get to the paperwork side of things and the org side of things, I would consider myself like, you know, I would say top 500 in terms of being able to understand and do this stuff. On the org side of things, I'm lost. And so that's why it is the funniest like situation for all this to be in.
Yeah, it's very confusing. There's so much stuff going on. If you want to just go to OCE real quick, Jesse, I don't think they had an MRC, but they do have an MRI, if I'm not mistaken, there, because it was kind of combined for Asia. So that's also another confusing thing on like how things are going to go with that. But Kenga Esports, we got to see Fury, Platinum Star, and probably us. And I guess, well, I think they only had two. So Kenga Esports and Platinum Star from those as well. So these are like all the potential teams that can qualify for MRI. But that's all the time we have for now, because Artie's really got to get going. Sorry
I'm
to
so
keep you
sorry.
long, Artie. But any final thoughts from you, Valentina? I'll give you the floor if you want to do any shout outs or things of that sort before we send things away real quick.
I don't really have any shout outs. Not at the moment.
That works out. Well, either way, we're excited to see everyone competing in Marvel Rivals Ignite. Thank you all for tuning in. I've been Vodible. We've had Adalynx, we've had Valentina, and we've had Artie IRL, and we'll see you on the next episode.